This is the Washington Times front page for Monday, January 5th, 2026. Thanks for starting your week with us. I'm George Gerbo. The military operation that captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro was a drastic step by the Trump administration, which has traditionally been cautious about military entanglements abroad. Ben Wolfgang and Mike Glenn report the situation in Venezuela represented a once-in-a-generation opportunity by President Trump to advance many core national interests simultaneously, even as Maduro's lawyers are expected to contest the legality of his arrest, arguing he is immune from prosecution as a sovereign head of state. The mission to capture Maduro took root months ago with the insertion into Caracas of a team of CIA operatives. More than 150 aircraft also played a role on the raid on Maduro's compound inside the Fort Tayuna military base in Caracas. Senior Trump administration and government officials confirmed to several news organizations over the weekend that U.S. intelligence operatives had been closely monitoring Maduro's daily activities for months. The dust continues to settle after the operation. Seth MacLachlan reports the president told reporters aboard Air Force One the U.S. is now in charge of Venezuela. Asked how that squares with his past criticism of nation building abroad, Trump said the situation is different. Across Venezuela, uncertainty abounds as the world tries to figure out what comes next, especially after Trump vowed to run the country until a safe, proper, and judicious transition. Secretary of State Marco Rubio attempted to clarify the administration's approach, saying no U.S. troops are on the ground in Venezuela and that the U.S. plans to exert significant influence over the country's oil industry to pressure the remaining leaders into political change. Congress returns to Washington with a pile of unfinished business on its plate and decisions to make on U.S. involvement in Venezuela. Lindsay McPherson reports avoiding another government shutdown remains urgent given lawmakers' self-imposed January 30th deadline to pass the 9 annual appropriations bills they've yet to enact. This week, appropriations bills will take a back seat to members' efforts to determine what happens next in Venezuela. Senate Democrats plan to force a vote on a war powers resolution directing the president to terminate the use of U.S. forces for hostilities against Venezuela unless authorized by Congress. And finally, Stephen Dinan and Mallory Wilson look back on President Trump's first year of his second term in office. The torrential pace of action from the early stages of last year has slowed, but Trump has outdone his predecessors for sheer frenzy. One Republican official who worked in the first Trump White House said that save for the slowing number of immigrants at the southern U.S. border, the flurry of activity hasn't necessarily translated to accomplishments. Find all today's front page stories at WashingtonTimes.com/front page or on the Washington Times app, and find us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on social media at Wash Times for breaking news, sports, commentary, and more. And a quick programming note, the front page will be off January 6th through January 8th, and will return on Friday, January 9th. For the Washington Times, I'm George Gerbo.